Baby, here I go, start the show. Beat on my heart, now about to explode. I'm about to explode. Feel good, what I'm feeling.
Hello, and welcome. I am Erica Salee, Transformation Success Coach, and welcome to Ignite Your True Self. I hope that you had a fantastic day. So whatever time you happen to be seeing this, I do believe it is the right time. It will be the right time. And I do believe that you'll get exactly what you need from this conversation. So let me really quickly introduce myself for those of you who may be stopping by the show for the very first time. I am Erica Salee, speaker, self-help author, transformation success coach, and owner of True Synergy. And as a result of my personal coaching and professional development programs, I help women and organizations to figure out what stands in the way of their success. And the best part is after we move those barriers out of the way, then I do provide the strategies to get beyond those barriers to the best version of themselves. And so Ignite Your True Self is an extension of that. These are conversations to enlighten you on exactly what those barriers may be. And then through the conversation, I'm just giving you little sparks to keep you moving forward so that you can step into whatever it is that you want to do, whatever you want to be, whatever goals you want to achieve. And that, in essence, is your true self. And so got a couple housekeeping things that I want to get through before we get started with tonight's topic. The first is to announce the contest winner from last week's show. I had intended to do it before tonight, but here we are. The contest or the conversation last week was all about making time for self-care. And the contest was just asking people to engage, to respond, to share their comments, any ahas that they may have had through the course of the conversation. And even if you came in to see the replay after the show broadcasted live, you still had an opportunity to share your comments. So I do want to announce the winner is Miss Jaquista Powell. So Jaquista, who is, I'm sure she's okay with me saying this, Jaquista has been a client of mine, and I do greatly appreciate her support on multiple platforms. And so Jaquista jumped into the conversation and shared that she was checking out the conversation and she was into support. And so Jaquista is the winner of this hat that I wore during the broadcast. And it does say, of all the hats I wear, this one is for self-care. So Jaquista, I do appreciate you, and I will be reaching out to you to make sure that you get your hat. And when you get this, it really is a declaration that you're making to yourself that with everything else going on in your world, and I'm sure like many of us, there are lots of things that you are managing. And so when you wear this hat, it's a declaration to yourself that no matter those things, that you are primary, first and foremost. So I just wanted to announce that. So Jaquista, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. And so as you are listening tonight, or whatever time you happen to see this, I do want you to hashtag Ignite Your True Self, so that if you're coming into the conversation, that your tribe knows what you're up to tonight. And then, of course, I'm going to ask you to, yes, invite them to be a part of future conversations. All right, so the next thing on the agenda before we get into the topic is I do want to acknowledge, I have to acknowledge, it's important to say that this is the beginning of, Black History Month. And really, Black history is every month, right? Every single day, because there's something rich that we bring to the fabric of not only this country, but the world. Yes, I did say the world. And so it does not go unnoticed that this is the time where the calendar says we recognize what Black people have brought to the forefront of everything that goes on, right? From the economy to film to books to music to technology to education. There is a depth and a breadth of things that we bring to the table. And so I do want to highlight, and it's very fitting because the Super Bowl is right around the corner. And we've got the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs going to the big show. And I'm actually rooting for the Eagles, okay? Since my Ravens are not anywhere close to the big game, I am going to root for the other birds, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. But what I want to announce is that Autumn Lockwood is an assistant coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, and she will be the first Black woman to coach in a Super Bowl. Autumn Lockwood. So if you get a chance, look her up. You can go to the NFL's Instagram page, or you could probably just Google her name and she'll come up. But Autumn Lockwood will be the first Black woman to coach in the Super Bowl. And how fitting to share that with you on this second day of Black History Month. So if you're just coming into the conversation, again, I do want you, there she is, Jaquista. I don't know when you came in, but I just wanted you to know that I announced you as the winner from last week's contest. So I'm going to be reaching out. So you do say thank you. Okay, so you heard that part. So good. I'm glad that you were able to hear, because it is well deserved that you always show up. So listen, let's jump into this topic for tonight. And the topic is how to find your soul tribe. Listen, I got so many notes and things that I want to share. So I know, we have a limited amount of time to share, but how do you find your soul tribe? Okay, so let's first of all talk about what a soul tribe is. So a soul tribe is a collection of valuable relationships that feed you and help you grow, right? Now, there's an extension of that. It's almost like your soul tribe are the roots that keep you grounded, are the parts that keep you planted. And I'm going to get more into it in just a moment. But here's the thing. The problem is that we are relational beings. Like, there's no way that you and I could navigate through life without being connected to people, because that's not why we were created, right? That's not part of the journey of our story and the history of who we are. So we will always be connected to people. But the problem is that sometimes we're not always connected to the right people, right? Not always connected to the right people. And I'm sure that even as I say this, and you can type it in the comments, that if you say to yourself, yep, I know, not always connected to the right people, I can think of 3 people who really weren't part of my soul tribe, right? So if that's you, type it in the comments and let me know if that makes sense, if that's something that you can identify with. And so why is this a problem? Well, one of the reasons is that if you think about it, we're taking in a lot. There's a lot of input coming our way. From the work that we do, the people that we're connected to right now, whether that's our peers at work, whether it's our family, our friends, our neighbors. There's so much. We're taking in a lot that's coming in through the news and social media. We're trying to navigate stuff on our own, right? And so when you think about that, while there is a time and a place for us to do that, there's also a time and a place for us to have that nurturing space, right? That tribe who can help us to release, so that as input is coming in, we have a place to put it. And it's important to have a place to put it, because if we don't, then what ends up happening is we're taking in all the stuff, and it's piling up, and we get stressed. We sometimes can feel isolated if we don't have the right tribe, because we're holding everything in, and it's just like, oh no, I don't have this, what I need over here. And so you get isolated. And sometimes the other part of it is that when you don't have the right relationships, that can stir up toxicity, okay? And toxic relationships bleed into everything else that I just said, the stress, the isolation, the frustration. It can cause dis-ease, right? So it is important for us to be connected with the right people. So here's what I'm going to want you to think about when this conversation is over. You know, a lot of times we attach ourselves to numbers, okay? And I'll be the first to tell you, when it comes to public conversations, sometimes we look at numbers to figure out, okay, how many people do we have that are engaged with us? How many people are logging on? How many people are checking out what we have to say? I'm just giving you a framework from, you know, my perspective in one case. So we get attached to numbers, right? Quantity. But when this conversation is over, I'm going to want you to think about quality. And what is the quality of my relationships that helps me understand what that soul tribe looks like? Okay. And really at the end of the day, what this speaks to is a level of healthy well-being, wellness, and it goes into self-care. Like every conversation, there's a touch point to how we take care of ourselves, and having these relationships or this soul tribe is a form of nurturing. Okay, so let me read something to you. This popped up on social media a couple days ago, and I thought, man, how fitting is it that this statement kind of fits into the conversation for tonight. So even though the quote is referring to women, I do want to say that for any men who happen to be seeing this, this also pertains to you. But this quote just caught me. So it says, women are abandoning the need to just come together and gossip. Now, let me just say, let me stop right there before I continue on. Because, you know, that's a stereotype that when women come together, that's all that we're doing is gossiping. But there are some circles of women who do just that. So let me read on. So it says, they are coming together to heal, grow, and prosper. This is the new sisterhood. And this quote comes from Woman Know Thyself. Now, I'm not sure if this is a group on Facebook. I took a screenshot of it, but that quote just kind of stuck with me, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. When we talk about a soul tribe, we're really talking about women, men coming together in a space where they feel like they are able to grow, to learn, to prosper. All right. So let's talk about the first tip. When you say, how do you find your soul tribe? So here's the first thing, and that is to assess where you are right now and to think about what you need. All right. Just think about that for a minute. Assess where you are and think about what you need. So here's an example. If you were to ask me right now, one of the things that I can identify with when I say where am I right now is that I am a single woman. Okay. So as I think about companionship, there's a certain type of energy that I'm looking for, not just in a companion, but also in my soul tribe. So that means that I want to be connected with, one, a companion whose energy is right, but two, a soul tribe who is not bashing men. Okay. I am attracted to men. And so that's my preference. And so when I say, okay, this is where I am. Okay, I'm single. Well, what kind of energy do I want in my soul tribe? I want to be connected with a group of women who are not constantly talking down about men. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some bad apples out there. Now, there's some bad apples on both sides. But if I'm sitting in a room or we're out to dinner and we're just having, a glass of wine, that's not the conversation that I constantly want to hear. So when you talk about your soul tribe, it's really getting connected and getting present to what's going on in my space right now. And when I think about that, then what is it that I'm looking for? So I'm going to share with you a couple of different layers to this conversation called a soul tribe, right? So hopefully you can see this diagram I put together to kind of illustrate the conversation for tonight. So I want you to get a good look. And really what I see is 3 different rings, okay? So this here, right in the middle, is the core, okay? Look at me. I'm trying to navigate the pen and the paper at the same time. This is the core. So this is the inner part. This is the close-knit, and I'm going to break it all down in a minute in terms of what each of these means. And then this outer ring is what I'm calling, well, I should say the ring that's outside of the core is actually the inner ring. And then the ring that's on the outside or circling around the inner is the extended, okay? So you've got your core, you got your inner, you got your extended, all right? So when we talk about soul tribe, let me explain the core. And if you're taking notes, if you are taking notes, it'll be good because then you can go back and refer to. And then of course, if you're in a, maybe you're on the road and you're not able to write things down, you can always go back and check out the replay. And I'll talk about how you do that in just a moment. So let's talk about this core. So the core is a group of people who you are extremely close to. There is a high level of trust. This is a group of people who are there for you. Right? When you call, when you need something, they can listen. You can tell them how you need to be supported. Sometimes that listening is just that. It's not always getting an answer or wanting a solution. Sometimes you just need to get things out of your space and into somewhere else. So that's not sitting in here, right? So that's a group of people who are there for you. High emotional intimacy and emotional investment. Let me say that again. High emotional intimacy and emotional investment. That means it's almost like a reciprocal relationship is the emotional investment piece. So that means this is a group of people that when you go to them, that they are connecting with you on the emotional level that you need. And they are invested. Well, what does invested mean? Well, that means if you're having a conversation with a person, let's say you're face to face and you're sitting down and the person, you're talking to the person. Let's say it's, maybe you've got 3 friends, and I'll talk about like how many people in this core circle. So you're talking and they're sitting at the table doing this on their phone, engaged in something else. They're looking at social media. Meanwhile, you're talking and you're sharing and you're needing to be in this space with them. So emotional investment, emotional intimacy says when you're together, that phone is not even an option, that you are connected. Emotional investment also means that this is a group of people who might know your deepest, darkest secrets. Things that perhaps you're not sharing with everybody else. And they can hold those things in a safe space. And there's no, it's getting back to people because this person told it and somebody else. That core, that soul tribe is the one that's going to hold that for you, is going to do it without judgment. Okay. So that's the core. All right. So that's this middle ring right here. See if I can point to it correctly. So now let's talk about the inner, right? So the inner is the group of people that you can have fun with, you can laugh, maybe you've got things in common, you have shared experiences, you can sit down and have a conversation and say, oh, you know what? I've been to Jamaica before. You've been to Jamaica too? Oh my goodness, we had such a great time. You talk about those experiences, you laugh, you're able to go hang out at a movie. When you get together, you're kind of talking about those shared experiences, and there is an emotional connection, but it might not necessarily be a high investment of information, right? So the inner is the group that maybe you're close to, but you're not necessarily sharing your deepest, darkest secrets. These are people that, you can kick it with, you can have a good time. Maybe there's somebody who comes to you on an occasion and can share certain things, maybe get your input. But again, the emotional connection and that intimacy is not locked like this. Okay. So that is the inner. This is also a place where there is vulnerability, but there's vulnerability with boundaries. Okay. When we go back to this core, there's an extreme high level of vulnerability here, and it's like no boundaries. So what do I mean by that? It's like, you know what? If you have your soul tribe, that core group of people, and you're just like having a bad day, and you're just like all over the place, your emotions are high, they're low, you're cussing, you're fussing, and maybe you're laughing, you're crying, and you're just getting all of this out. And you feel like, I just need to get it out. There's no boundary there, because you're allowing your soul tribe to see and be emotionally connected to the what you're putting out. With the inner, you might say a few things, but you might not let it go to the extent of just total release of the emotion. So that's vulnerability with some boundaries in place. Okay. So that's the inner. The extended, which is this outer part, is where you have relationships, but there's really not any emotional connection. And this might be, I should say, lack of emotional connection, because this might be, say, friends that you have on social media, or it might be family that you see every once in a while, and it might be like third cousin removed from Aunt Bessie's side, and you see each other at the family reunion, and when you do, it's like, hey, how you been? It's good. It might be friends from college or high school, right? You go back to the reunion, you see people, and it's like, oh, hey, you know what? Look me up on Facebook. We'll stay connected. So that's the extended. So those three layers of relationship kind of give you an idea about, okay, well, if this is what it looks like, then where is my soul tribe? And that soul tribe is right here in this core. Okay. Right here in the core. This is the group where you can be extremely vulnerable with. You can allow them to do the same with you. Because likely, if they are your soul tribe, you are also part of theirs. Okay. And so understanding these three layers helps to pinpoint, oh, well, this is what we're talking about, this right here. So the core is your soul tribe. But here's the thing I want you to remember is that you may have people, let me back up and say it this way. So while the core is what feeds you, you might have people in the inner and in this extended who also feed you. But it's a different type of food, right? So let's say, for instance, let's go to this inner. The inner is, like I said, friends, family, perhaps colleagues that you say, hey, let's go grab a bite to eat. Let's go grab a drink. And this is somebody who makes you laugh. You know that whenever you need a pick-me-up, this person or this group of people can always do it, can always like just say something. And you're like, oh my gosh, I needed that laugh. So that's somebody who can feed you and give you that, but that's different than this core here, because the core or that soul tribe can do that for you, but can also get to the heart of why you needed that laugh. Whereas your inner or even your extended might only know that you need a good laugh. They give you the laugh and you're good, but you're not going to go into all of the reasons why. So hopefully that makes some sense. So that's the first one, first tip. So in order to understand what that soul tribe looks like, it's like, okay, if I think about where I am right now and I think about what I need, then that helps me to figure out who in my circle can help me to have that kind of energy, have that kind of emotional connection, emotional intimacy, and that level of vulnerability where I can just show up and I can truly be my total authentic self. Now, sometimes authenticity comes in a lot of different forms. And as I mentioned, it could come in the form of your emotions are kind of all over the place. Maybe you're dealing with a situation, and to the other person, it might be like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. But to your soul tribe, it's like they can take that in and say, come on, let's figure it out. Let's have you, share, and we work through it together. And so that's kind of what that looks like. All right. Are you following me so far? So if that makes sense, type it in the comments. And also, if what you've heard so far is something that you're sitting there like, okay, so this core, this inner, this extended, like you can probably already see certain people who fit into these three categories. Okay. So I spent a lot of time on this first tip because I think it's important to understand what these different rings look like, so that you can then move into, okay, so let me try to figure out where to put people based on where I am now and what I need. So let me go into tip number 2. So tip number 2 is that sometimes we have to create new boundaries. And when we create new boundaries, what's going to happen is that, or what may happen is that you may recognize a shift between these spaces. All right. So let me explain that. So a few years ago, I was having a conversation actually with someone in my extended ring. And remember, extended is somebody that you're connected to, but you might not be as close to. Maybe you have conversations with them on social media, maybe again, just like a distant friend or someone that you see every once in a while. So I was having a conversation with an extended friend of my extended circle. And she was talking about a situation where she was connected with a friend and they had been friends for years. And I think, she was godmother to the friend's children. And, through the years, they'd done so many things together. And so they were really close. But there came a time, this is pulling on my sweater, there came a time when that relationship started to change. So I would say, based on the conversation, it was a soul tribe kind of relationship right here in this core. But over the course of time, something happened, something changed. And that something started to stir up a little bit more toxic behavior where this person was always needing something from my extended friend. And the person was happy to oblige, always there for the person, always showing up. But what she noticed was that this person was not doing the same for her. And so this tip, creating new boundaries, says that we sometimes have to sit down and think about where we need to make adjustments. So what she recognized was that even though this person was considered part of her soul tribe, part of her core, based on how things were changing and how much more toxic the relationship became, she started moving out, right? Moving out. Now, I don't know where the relationship is right now, but it was sort of like in this inner space right here. So when you begin to create those boundaries, what that does is it helps you to understand how your soul tribe needs to look. And if you need to move people out of that space so that perhaps you can make room for someone else to come into the space, because it works both ways. So let's say you've got an inner group of people and you begin to develop a different kind of level of relationship. It may be that just as someone has to move out, you're able to move somebody else in, of course, with careful vetting, and over the course of time, you can kind of see how that person fits into what you need and the kind of energy they bring to the table, so that you know how to shift. But the reality of it is that people and circumstances change. And that requires us to figure out where we might need to make shifts in terms of what that soul tribe or that core relationship of people looks like. Okay, so if you're with me, go ahead, type it in the comments. And let me know, like, have you had situations where you have had to think about reassessing your relationships with people? Interestingly enough, and I'll share that in a moment when I want to share this other little piece too, because I think this is important. So let me also do this. And I'll show you, I'm just have to write it down. So there's also this part of the picture. I don't know if you can see that. So while you have your core, your inner extended, you also may have something that looks like this. You have people who are off the radar, okay? That means they're not in any of these spaces, which is another good indicator of your soul tribe, right? Because you know that this is not what it is. So the off the radar are those relationships that are just severed. You know, they just don't exist with you anymore. I had a situation, and I think I shared this some time ago, and then we'll get into tip number 3 as we get ready to close out. I had a relationship with someone that wasn't a core and wasn't an extended, but it was an inner, right? This was an inner relationship. Somewhere around 2020 when COVID hit, that relationship just went way off the radar because there was a situation where, you know, she felt like I had done something to undermine how she was operating her business. And it just got to be, it was just so, I had to sit down and assess it because I'm like, where is this coming from? And I really had to ask myself, is that me? Is that what I'm doing? And that really wasn't the case. So what that said to me is that even when I thought it was a good inner relationship that could have possibly moved here, it ended up moving over here, just off the radar, because it's not even somebody that I have conversation with, deleted the person out of my phone, like have no conversation. So there comes a moment in time where this tip here, creating new boundaries, says, oh, this is a boundary that was crossed because it was totally put into a context that said to me that there's no coming back into the space, even as an inner, extended, and certainly not part of the core. All right. So let me go and see. So Jaquisa says, I've often had to shuffle people from ring to ring. Yeah. And I think that's fair because as you and I grow, then we start to understand more about ourselves. We start to understand more about, and this goes back to the very first tip. You know, the very first tip said, assess where you are. And when you think about where you are, what you want, what you don't want, then that really kind of helps you to start framing what that core group or that soul tribe of people looks like. So Jaquisa, thank you for sharing that. And let me say this, you know, sometimes we're not as clear as we need to be on what those relationships look like. Sometimes we really need to get present to those questions at a deeper level, like where am I now? What am I looking for? Now, this is just, you know, really quick conversation for tonight because we only have a limited time. But I do want to let you know this, that, you know, there comes a moment in time where we do need to get some clarity, where we want to understand a little bit more so that we can get those results in the friendship space, in the soul tribe space, you know, that we desperately need from a nurturing perspective. And so if that is you, I do want to also extend the offer because next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be doing a session called Gain Clarity and Get Results for Any Change. And any change means a change in your relationship. It means a change in trying to achieve a goal. It means a change in, oh my gosh, it's time for me to make a career change. Like, These steps apply to any change that you need to make. And so as we're having this conversation tonight, you may be listening to this saying, oh, you know what? I need to make some changes with my connections. And I need to get to a deeper level of what I need in order to nurture and fulfill me. How do I do that? So I share 6 steps that can be applied to any, and I do mean any, change that you're trying to make. And so if you're sitting there listening and you're thinking about, what this looks like for you, you might be saying, oh, I need to figure that out a little bit more. And I need to be really, really clear on how that needs to look for me. I'm going to just let you know that registration is still open. I will post the registration link again after tonight's conversation. But I at least wanted to let you know that, because sometimes we just need to kind of sit down and map the things out. And sometimes it's not always easy to figure out how to shuffle people around into these spaces so that you can actually get to that soul tribe that makes you feel like you have that safe space support system. So there's that. All right, so let's get into tip number 3. Tip number 3. So here's the thing. You might be listening to this and you might say, okay, so you're talking about it from the perspective of people who already have a circle, who already have connections with people. And it's easy to kind of know who that soul tribe is because I know who nurtures me. I know what I need. They give it to me. I'm vulnerable with them. Before I go any further, let me say this. You might be saying, well, how many people? Remember, I talked about quality over quantity. So when you think about this inner circle right here, what I would suggest is, and research and other conversations tend to agree, is that soul tribe should be about 3 to 5 people. 3 to 5 people. Now you might be saying, oh Lord, I got 10 people in my core, in my soul tribe. Now what? Now, okay, that might work. That might work. I'm not saying that you can't have 10 people in your soul tribe. I'm saying 3 to 5 because sometimes 10 is a lot to manage. And if you get to the point and you're like, I really need this circle around me, sometimes it's not easy to get 10 people to be there. Now, of course, with technology and texting and Zoom and all kinds of other virtual options, I'm not going to say if you got 10, then it's something wrong, because it's going to be what works for you. So back to that question, assessing where you are right now and what you need, then that 10 might be what you need. And so you do what works for you, but I'm just throwing out that as a gauge, and you get to figure out the plus or minus on either side of that 3 to 5 number. Okay. So tip number 3 is to go back to your responses from the first tip. So if you say, okay, where am I and what do I need? Then really what tip number 3 says is that once you figure that out, and let's say you're not the person who has a lot of people around you right now to even develop a soul tribe, then what I would say is to connect in those spaces that provide the energy and the vibe that you need. So if you ask yourself the question, okay, well, what is it that I'm looking for? You might say, well, I'm looking for someone who's focused on personal development, or I'm looking for somebody who can motivate me and push me when I don't want to do and I know I need to do, and I'm not self-motivated. So I really need to be connected with people who help me to keep moving when I don't want to do it on my own. So if that's one of the things that you know that you need, then there's lots of social media groups out there. And I know you got to do some research because you want to make sure that you connect in the right space. So meetups or social groups, any professional, or they used to have these back in the day, and now I'm losing my train of thought in terms of what to call it. Like all the groups, you can go out and search just about any particular hobby or anything that you're interested in, and you can join the Facebook groups. Maybe that's what I was trying to say. But in doing that, you want to be connected enough to your why and be connected enough to what you need so that if you join groups or social circles, that you can kind of feel out if that energy suits what you're looking for. Now, in that case, in the beginning of the conversation, I kind of started here, right? This is your soul tribe right here in the core. But if this tip number 3 is really leaning toward the person who's like, well, I'm not here, I don't have this yet. So you're essentially working from the outside trying to go in. And it might take a while because, developing these kinds of relationships does take time, but this is a place to start. So you might start with some extended connections, and then you might figure out that those extended connections then move here. And then you get to say, okay, this is my soul tribe because I've been able to open up the boundaries to let these develop into something a little bit more intimate. Does that make sense? Are you following me? So there's that. And there was something else I was going to mention, and I literally just lost my train of thought. And I don't know if sipping this lemon water is going to make it come back. So if it does, I will mention it before we wrap up, which is going to be in about 5 minutes. So let me recap these really quickly. All right, just going to recap. So how do you find your soul tribe? First is to ask yourself where you are right now, to ask, do some inner work. You're like, you're literally sitting down saying, where am I? Where am I right now? Like, what is happening in my space? And based on that, then you say, well, what is it that I need? If right now, I'm recently divorced and I'm single, then what do I need? Well, I need to be around people who understand that I might need emotional support, or I might need to go out and have a good time, meet some new people. Like, I need to be able to share that in a space that is comfortable and healthy for me, right? So that's just a quick assessment. That's just an example. I mean, it's a true statement for me, but the second tip is to create new boundaries. So when you create those boundaries, it helps you to weed people out of this space, right? And the reverse, when I get to tip number 3, says it also helps to let people in. So when you create those boundaries, what you're doing is you're assessing your current circle up against where you are now and what you need. And those people in that core may either meet that, and you don't have to, create boundaries around them, or they may not meet it, and you might have to create boundaries to filter them out because it no longer serves you in that kind of incubated space of core people. All right. And then the third tip is to connect in the spaces that provide the energy and the vibe that you need. And this is for the person, again, who may not necessarily have a place to start. And I don't want to use the word loner because that implies something that doesn't really feel positive. But, you might be searching for just an extended circle first, and then decide if it can move to inner and then move to core. So in that case, then you're connecting through things like meetups, social groups, professional or personal learning spaces. Even a therapy is a good place to find the energy and the vibe that you need, because that is the start of a safe space. Now, that does not mean that your therapist is going to be like your core group where you get to go hang out, have drinks and food with, because that's not how the therapy relationship goes from a legal perspective. But it at least gives you a place to start, to even start discovering where you are and what you need. Right. So there's a space there to start uncovering that first tip so that you can start digging down into the other layers of how to establish that soul tribe for yourself. Okay. So before we close out, let me check the comments. When you move with purpose, a tribe will happen. I appreciate you bringing that comment because that is absolutely true. It's amazing. And I appreciate you saying that, Jaquisa, because you are correct. It's like when you start to align with the things that are fulfilling, that make you feel good, then people will show up for you. There is a saying, the word says that your gift will make room for you. And I associate your gift with purpose. And it making room for you means that not only are there opportunities that will come your way that will allow you to serve in your purpose, but there are also people connected to that that will show up as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. It is absolutely true. And I appreciate your feedback on that. So next week's topic, next week. Listen, we are moving through this month in a really, really quick way. I know today is just the 3rd, but when I say next week, I'm like, oh, next week is the 9th. And then, time just moves. And so next week, we're going to be talking about how to reduce overwhelm. How to reduce overwhelm. Now, this is a good time to talk about that because at the beginning of the year, you kind of want to keep yourself focused and in a good space, right? And so in order to do that, we have to understand how to compartmentalize some things so that we're not overextending. And so you'll want to tune in for that conversation, how to reduce overwhelm. And so I'm going to say this again, just a few things just to close out the conversation. Again, if you are thinking about getting clear on some things, whether it is this core group of people who can support you, your soul tribe, maybe you need clarity in other areas, then I am going to invite you to register for Gain Clarity and get results for any change using 6 simple steps. That's next Tuesday, February 7th at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will post the link to register so that you can take advantage of that. I will tell you that the fee for that is $77. That includes the session that I'm doing on next Tuesday, and it also includes a post Q&A session after that session is over. So you'll want to take advantage of that. It's early enough in the year so that if you're trying to navigate and just get a clearer picture of some things for yourself, then this is the opportunity to do that. And then finally, if you have other questions and you might hear something in tonight's conversation, or perhaps you've gone back to look at some of the other lives from the previous weeks and you say, it's nice to be in this space. It's nice to get this information, but I got some stuff I need to clear out for myself and trying to really figure out how to hone into my best version, that I'm going to invite you to reach out to me at TruSynergy.org. There is a contact link and a schedule link at the top of the navigation pane where you can schedule some time with me. A consultation and discovery session doesn't cost you anything except 45 minutes of your time. So if there's something that you're hearing and you're stirring around with what you are trying to achieve for yourself, then do by all means reach out. You can also check out my link tree so that you can see all of my social media handles and be able to connect with me there. I am actually on Instagram at TruSynergy_. And then you can also find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Erica Salee. And so there's lots of different ways to connect with me on those spaces as well. And so with that being said, I want to also encourage you that if you are watching this, I told you, I'm rounding it out. Y'all stay with me just 30 more seconds. If you are watching this on YouTube, then I do encourage you to subscribe to the channel, share it out, and then turn the notification bell on so that when new videos are uploaded, that you are notified as to when they are up so that you can check those out. So on that note, I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. And until I do, take care of yourselves and yes, be well. Good night.